Everyone, so today we're going to go over 5 different exercises and stretches to help out the shoulders. So I talked about a lot of the anatomy in the Anatomy 101 video of the shoulder. Very complex part of the body, so we're going to make sure that we are addressing major muscles that can get tied around it and also activating some of the counter muscles that need to get stronger so that we can balance out the strength ratios from front to back, side to side, and up to top. So first things first is going to be chest stretch. So chest stretch is a very important part of getting the shoulders in a good position. We tend to have very dominant forward positioning like such, so stretching out the pec major and pec minor, very important. So the most simplistic one is first going to be just a doorway stretch. So we can go in a doorway to do this. I'll use the wrap. We go into a split out position. The lower my elbow is in line with the shoulder, the more it's going to be more pec major, while if I reach up, I'm going to be more pec minor. Okay, so I can get both here, so I'm going to go pec major first. So we get that lined up. I'm going to drop forward and rotate slightly away from that. And then I'm just going to hold and take a good 5 to 10 breaths until I can feel a little bit of a release in that tightness in the chest. Luckily right now I'm not dealing with too much, so that's nice. I'm going to stay in this position, but I'm going to reach it up. So elbow is now higher than the shoulder. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. Now we get a little bit more pec minor. I'm just going to take some deep breaths in here as well. Really simple but great way to stretch out the chest, the pec major and minor, and some of the other muscles that actually lie in here as well. I'm actually feeling a little bit tight in my bicep and deltoid, and that was a good stretch for it. Big thing with doing this, we can do it against the wall. We can also go on the floor and actually do it on a coffee table or a table where we're like kneeling down in that exact same position, opening up the chest, or even just on the floor if the chest is really tight itself. So really good example of stretching out the pec major and minor muscle right there. Next we move on to a lat stretch. So the lat muscle originates down at the bottom of the back, so it starts at the bottom of the back, runs all the way up and attaches into the upper arm bone of the humerus, which is the arm bone that is the ball to the socket of that glenoid joint of the shoulder. So for the lat stretch, there's a couple different ways we can do it. We can utilize a band to do it, which I'll do this one first. I'm just going to take any band. If you have a good stiff band, we can use a monster band where we can go in a dog leash hold like this. Takes a little bit of pressure out of holding onto the band, which is kind of nice. And then I can just back down and away and let that arm take with the resistance of the band. That's going to open up and elongate everything here while I sit back. If I want to intensify this, I can pop my hip over. I call this banana bending here. We create more of a banana shape, and we open up that side department of the lat even more. If you don't have access to a band, you can also do this in a doorway as well. So same idea of that banana bend. So I'm going to reach up and over. Other hand's going to come underneath. And I like to cross the leg underneath. Kind of gives me a little bit of support. And then I'm going to push away with my down arm. And that's going to elongate out this side. You can see that banana bend from the front there. So for both the chest and the lat stretch, it's hard to say the exact amount of time that one individual is going to need with doing a stretch. So my best advice is to feel the sensation when you start. Say it's a 7 out of 10 intensity when you first start your stretch. As you go on, you feel that intensity maybe drop to a 5 out of 10 instead of a 7 out of 10. You can be pretty confident that you achieved a bit of a stretch within that, so you have the option of calling it good on the stretch or going a little bit deeper into the stretch, which then will re-amplify it, maybe back up to that 7 out of 10, maybe even 8 out of 10, because the muscle is opening up even more. So that's a really good rule of thumb. Stretching you can do 2 to 3 times on each side for that release, or if you're strapped on time, you can just hit it that one time. Definitely better than not doing anything at all, of course. Okay. Next is going to be a internal-external rotation of the shoulder. This one is a very common one, and we can put a weight in the hand when doing this as well. We just take a seat on a bench or anything Even on the floor doing this, it's nice to do it up on a bench though, because you can drop that other leg and keep a better posture here. So internal rotation of the shoulder is going to fall inwards, while external is going to fall outwards. Okay, you're going to find that your external rotation is going to be a little bit less in this position than your inwards, so this allows you to work on pulling into external rotation, while gravity is going to take into internal rotation. You use a band with this, so something of this sort, tied up again and pull against, or a light dumbbell, 3 to 5 pounds, something like that. And we can work on that external rotation as well. This is a really good opportunity to work eccentrically as well, which eccentric is an elongation contraction of a muscle, while shortening is concentric. So in this instance, eccentric would be controlling it downwards, and concentric is pulling it upwards. 3 rounds of this on each side, 8 to 12 reps, pretty standard, just like the spine exercises that we went over. But with that being said, it's going to vary depending upon the person. This might be a very hard exercise for some in the beginning. I feel like even just doing it without weight, so definitely try it without weight before you start introducing weight. If you put a lot of weight into it, you're probably going to start to botch the form on the exercise. I do like to have people stay below 8 pounds when doing this. Even some of my strongest athletes, I keep them below 8 pounds because we're looking for more of a quality over quantity type situation with this exercise. Okay, so moving on, we have another exercise with the band. Set this off. So this exercise is a combo of 3 different movements. So we go back to that external rotation, but we're going to incorporate a row and also a press within this. So first things first, we set up with the band in front of us here. It doesn't have to be a monster band. If it's a normal like therapeutic band, that works just fine as well. You can hold. I do like a monster band because I can keep my hand pronated downwards for my row. So first thing is squaring up my body with my resistance. I'm going to row back. That's number 1. So now you can see I'm in a good row. Pulling my scapula, my shoulder blade backwards when I'm doing that. I'm going to hit an external rotation, so another external rotation motion. And then if I really want to make it a little extra spicy, I press it to ceiling, bring it back down, internally rotate eccentrically of the external rotators, and then release my row. So you can see I'm rowing, scap goes back. You can tell the scap went back because my shoulder actually moves backwards behind my ear rather than my elbow moving back behind my ear, but my shoulder staying in front. So that's a clear indicator of your shoulder blade not retracting and going back. If you feel that push forward and the shoulder actually is now ahead, I can see that in my periphery, so that's not the right form for a row. So I'm making sure that shoulder blade goes out of sight behind the ear, externally rotating, press the ceiling, bring it back down, internally rotate, and release. So if that press is too hard, you can still just stick with the row and external rotation. That's still a fabulous way of strengthening up the muscles around the shoulder. Press just adds a little extra to it. This one can be quite intense. I definitely recommend staying more below the 6 rep range, so like 4 to 6 reps on each side, 2 to 3 rounds. It's a lot slower. It's also a combo movement, so there's 3 movements in one. So it's actually more, if you're doing 6 reps, you're still actually doing 18 movements. So we want to make sure that we're not over fatiguing so that once again we can keep good form. All right. Last thing is an inverted row. So inverted rows can be a little bit tough if you're lacking equipment. You can do it with a barbell at your own gym, or a Smith machine works well too, because you just have the bar sitting across here that you can hook underneath. Today I'm going to use rings because I have access to rings. If you want something like rings at home, a TRX suspension system, you don't have to get the TRX brand, but any suspension system that you can tie up at home, you get it for like 40 to 60 bucks on Amazon, tie it in your door, have really good door mounts, and you can execute a lot of good exercises, including an exercise like this. Something really nice about using TRX and rings is the further your feet are underneath, the more challenging it's going to be. So, for example, if I'm back here and my feet are further, here compared to if I keep walking my feet underneath. You can see I keep going under. Okay, so first things first, if I'm hanging out all slacked out with a big back, I am not using the muscles to retract my shoulder blades that I want to be. So I want to retract my shoulder blades first. That's going to be that first suck up. Then pulling myself up towards the ceiling with a stiff bottom. Okay, so this is a pretty intense exercise. Core is really engaged. A lot of back arm muscles are being worked here. Okay, so we're going to keep that retraction throughout. And you can see that my shoulders, once again, aren't pushing forward too far. So I'm not pulling with my biceps and you're not seeing me into this funky position. I'm more so pulling through the scaps up to the top and then back down. If that is too hard, once again, you can back up and bring your feet back further. That's going to ease up the exercise. You can also work strictly just scapular retractions. So working your shoulder blades and those muscles that might be a little bit weakened and they haven't quite developed enough to allow you to retract that. So I'm going to show this a little bit closer up here. We have retraction of the shoulder blades, then pulling with the arms into that row, back out, release the retraction, pull it back underneath, and we're running. So, like I said, big focus is to make sure that the shoulder is in rounding forward and that glenoid's not pushing forward and the elbow's pulling back. We want that to go out of sight so that we're activating the proper musculature. This exercise can get a little bit challenging. You can definitely gauge it though based upon your own strength. And with that being said, just make sure you're getting a good spot where you can control it and get the quality of the motion down. 3 sets, 10 to 15 reps. So obviously if you back the feet out a little bit more, 15 reps is going to be more obtainable. So you got to find your sweet spot with that. However, these 5 motions and stretches, so chest stretch, lat stretch, internal, external rotation of the shoulders, banded row with external rotation and press, and then inverted row with scapular retraction. These 5 motions is a good foundation to work off of to get the shoulders moving in all sorts of different directions and stretch out some of the tired muscles and keep improving your shoulders, make them safer, and reduce the likelihood of injury. Thanks, guys.